Alright, welcome to my hair tutorial. Now in this specific tutorial I will go through drawing and constructing the hair on a person. Now these methods do work for animals, but we'll focus on people for now. By the way, I have a hair sculpting tutorial to follow after this, so do look forward to that around next week or so. But even if you don't know how to draw, this is also important. I've recently started preaching about 3D artists getting more into drawing, and I'm pretty sure my subs will hate this, but it is important. Anyway, for this video, we will be going through the theory of constructing and drawing hair. Now you do need to watch this part, the theory part is boring, but after that I will go through some quick drawing tips, and last but not least, we'll go through actually drawing the hair step by step. Alright, so first up, the boring part, theory. From anime to the morning cartoons, from realistic hair to simplified diagrams, these tips will help you draw more convincing hair with ease. Now whether you are drawing, sculpting or designing the hair, the first thing you need to realize is that hair should be considered a separate mass on the head or body. In other words, you can't just place some hair on the head and call it a day. It will look wrong. The hair, like clothing, echoes the forms underneath. Just applying these ideas will improve your hair construction by quite a bit. Right, the second thing to note is that hair is complex. Too complex to copy exactly. Beginners love doing this. It's a fool's errand, so just don't. What you need to do is simplify it. The mark of a great artist is not everything they are able to put in, but everything they are able to leave out. In this case, I'll work with the rules of threes. This means I'm dividing the hair into 3 parts, then working from there. In this example, we have the top layer of hair, the bottom layer of hair, and then the shaved part over here. These are 3 parts. There's also the 4th part, the stray hairs, but the first 3 parts make up the bulk of the hair, and they make the hair far more understandable. This is the mentality I use when I go into any hair drawing, or especially when I'm sculpting. Just a quick side note here, check out these Sargent paintings. The hair is very simple, but you understand what it is and what it's doing. There's no ambiguity. This is the epitome of simplification, but we won't be doing the Sargent type hair as it's actually quite advanced. I'm just showing you that the pros very rarely detail the hair. Now each of these areas, depending on the complexity, will also be divided into thirds as well. So again, instead of copying each strand, we are understanding the clumps of hair that make up the whole and expressing those. This exact method is used for beards, but instead of taking the entire beard and dividing that into thirds, I take each beard part, i.e. the moustache, goatee, chops, etc., and divide those into halves and or thirds. And yes, the same concept does work for long hair, afros, fur, etc. You just might need to add more sections depending on the complexity or the styling or grooming, etc. By the way, I will cover how to draw afros later in the video, so check the timestamps for that. Now here is another example of these divisions with longer hair. I divide it into 3 groups and then divide those groups into smaller sections. And here's an example of a styled afro divided into parts as well. So really all you need to do is understand these parts and you're halfway there. Third, and yeah, we're still on the theory part, your shapes need to be unique. In other words, not monotonous. Now this means that you need to remember to use a big shape to establish the hair, medium shapes to style and break up the hair, and small shapes to add the illusion of realism and complexity. This rule is the boom, bang, and bing of pretty much all your designs, hair or otherwise. Check out this cool little setup that Ben Bolton has provided. He starts off with a general unique big shape. This isn't hair, by the way. Then he divides that into medium chunks, again not being monotonous, and finally he adds the smaller areas to really spruce things up. With hair it can look like this, 1, 2, 3, or like this, 1, 2, and 3, or even like this, 1, 2, and 3. Just follow this hierarchy and your hair, or anything really, will look awesome. Fourth, your lines need to be quick and confident. This means that you can't feather your lines like this. Hair is fluid and connected, not broken up and messy. Messy hair, by the way, still has flow to it, so yeah, you can't get away with that. And finally, the 5th thing to note, you can use the hair to exaggerate and express more gesture and movement. This step really adds life to the hair and can really give it that wow factor if done right. The danger here is that if you over detail the hair, you could end up with more of a mess, so again, keep it simple. And yeah, that's about it for the theory part, luckily. So just to recap, the hair is a separate mass influenced, or volume, influenced by the forms underneath, i.e. the head, and dividing the hair into simple to understand regions, especially thirds, is super helpful. Don't be monotonous with your hair shape design by using the big, medium, small or the boom, bam and bing hierarchy. And finally, use quick, confident lines when drawing anything, not just hair. Oh, also you can also exaggerate the hair to get more movement and gesture. Okie doke, so drawing the hair, how do we actually do that? Firstly, the hair sits on the head, so I'll draw a quick sphere or egg shape and also get some quick lines in to block the cylindrical shape of the face out. Nothing complicated, by the way, we're focusing on the hair at the end of the day, so just a quick mannequin will do. And depending on how short the hair is, you might also want to include a simple hairline. After that, I'll make sure to remember not to draw the hair as if it's a flat mass tattooed on the head, but a separate mass on top of the head. I'll also make sure to add volume to the hair and keep it simple by blocking out 3 or more distinct areas to work with. Again, if it's really long or styled or messy hair, you may need to add another area too, but don't go crazy. After that, I'll mark out areas for the shading, specifically the shadows, halftones and lights, and at this point the hair should look 3D after shading it. If it doesn't, then start again. Trust me, you need to know how to start a drawing, not how to detail things. The detailing is actually easy. After that, I will detail the smaller areas, and if it's stylized hair, this part is actually quite quick. As for shading, well, the head is an egg, which is easily the easiest thing you can shade, so given that the hair sits on the head, the hair will take the general egg shading course, with some variations due to the hair's styling and directional changes. Okay, and then after that, when I'm happy with the shading, roughly what I'll do is I'll go in and start to detail things. I'm not going crazy, I'm just adding in some of the darks, some of the lights, and then after that, after I'm happy once again, I'll go in and I'll start to add in a little bit more details with the finer strands and also a little bit of lighting and also stray hairs here and there, just to give the hair a little bit more life. Now, just as a quick demonstration to show you that less is more, here is the finished drawing I just did, and here is another one I did with simplified strokes and lines, and you'll notice that it actually looks better. Some of you might disagree, but I do think that even though I put less work into this one, it still looks very, very good. You can see that the lines are chunkier, but it still gets the message across. Another important note, don't try and put every single strand into your drawing. Here are a few examples of me simplifying the hair while hinting at the details. And here is a version where I try to include every strand, and as you'll notice, it gets pretty distracting. So to counter that, what you can do is take the picture you're working on into Photoshop, use the black and white filter, that's Alt-Shift-Control+B, and then use the Levels filter, Ctrl-L, to bump up the contrast and brightness. Here, after doing this, you'll notice that the halftones, the darker areas in the lights, have the most details, while the shadows have almost no details. And here are some Rembrandt paintings, and he applies the same logic. No details in the dark and only masterful details in the lights. Whenever you see an artist detailing everything without trying to simplify, they usually have no idea what they are doing, so don't be that guy. Also, another reason as to why the hair shouldn't be overly detailed is because the main attraction on a head is the face, not the hair. So stop trying to impress people with your overly detailed hair and underwhelming face construction. And speaking of construction, if you guys are eager for more tips and tricks to help build up your knowledge, don't forget about my new website and Discord channel, links down below. Alright, so drawing afros and curly hair. Now, I don't see too many people covering this, but it's not that different from straight hair actually. Most of these steps are the same except for the last step. First we start with a basic head shape, next we get the big shapes of the hair and beard, in this case in, and after that we block in the lights and shadows using rounder shapes. This isn't compulsory, but I think it kinda helps. And last, this is where the steps differ slightly. I use small curved strokes and marks to hint at the curliness and texture of the hair. Yes, that's right, don't go crazy trying to detail everything you see, but just hint at it. If you get this right, and you can see the types of lines I'm using here by the way, the hair will look as if it's super detailed even though it's not. Again, if you give people the illusion of something, their imaginative minds will fill in the rest. And that's it, here it is. If I just show the texture layer, you'll see that I've only hinted at the details a little bit to make a big statement. That's the secret, that's it. Now just to convince you, I did another layer with more texture, and as you can see, it looks a little too distracting. So yeah, you don't need to over texture everything. And again, the face is the part that people care about the most, not the hair, so you don't have to be that guy. And here are some more modern day artists that do a great job at hinting the hair while making you think it's super detailed. Okay, yes, in Aaron's case he does detail the heck out of the fur, but he also has a lot of lost and found areas as well. It's well composed, which is another subject, but yeah. All these sketches I did, by the way, only took about 15 to 25 minutes from start to finish. So if you are going over 45 minutes, then you need to stop trying to detail everything. And also use a bigger brush for the shading. By the way, I would say that curly hair and afros are way harder to draw. Not because the actual drawing is hard, but because the urge to resist drawing in every curl you see is hard. So I would recommend practicing on straight to slightly, very slightly curled hair first, and then moving on to afros and curly hair for more advanced techniques. Beards. Alright, so here's a quick rundown of beards. Again, it's pretty much the same principle. Just block it out. Remember, it's a separate volume on the face, not a tattoo. You can see the lines at the bottom here extends past the jawline to get the volume of the hair in. And then we'll get the shadows and lights in, and finally we can hint, keyword hint, at the unkempt beard by throwing in some well-placed lines designed to look super detailed. That's it. No, you can't add more details. Put the pencil down and move on, please. Like I said, don't be that guy. And a quick rant before we move on to the next section. Holy moly, when I got through all my art books just to strengthen and refresh my hair drawing knowledge, I realized that almost none have sections dedicated to hair, and even if they do, it's just a quick mention and that's it. Really? By the way, I'm talking about all the older classic books like Loomis, Spam's, Bridgman, the Classic Artist Course, etc. It's either that or I skipped right past them in my aggressive frenzy. Anyway, yeah, on to the next section. Alright, so we've covered quite a bit of the do's and don'ts when it comes to hair, but let's quickly go through them as a final review to really drive them home. So 1. Don't treat the hair like a 2D piece of geometry slapped onto the head, otherwise it will look like this. Here's a South Park character and even his hair looks freaking awesome. This is because they are following the rules I mentioned. 2nd, try to divide the hair into clumps or specific areas to make it easier to work with. This will help you navigate any hairstyle so you can draw areas quicker, easier, and with more confidence. 3rd, speaking of divisions, don't forget to divide the hair into the boom, bang, and bing hierarchy, the big, medium, and small. Whether it's South Park hair or Rembrandt hair, this rule still applies. 4th, less is more. Using a small number of strokes and marks to hint at the detail will go further and save you time when trying to convince the viewer of hair on the character. So there's no need to texture everything. 5th, when shading, remember the hair lies on the head, so if you know how to shade an egg, then you need to follow the same pattern with hair. Also, most of the details in the shadows will be non-existent, while the lights and mainly halftones will have most of the details, so don't texture everything. 6th, don't forget that the hair is secondary to the face, so again, stop trying to over detail everything. And lastly, you can add these little detail hairs over here just to kind of give it a little bit more movement or gesture. Again, don't go crazy. Cartoon and anime hair. Now, as a quick bonus tip, these types of hair work the exact same as realistic hair. You just need to keep the design super simple and not shade in gradations. In other words, keep things flat. Here is a quick anime hairstyle, and I start with the head, a quick blocking of the hair, some divisions, and then I'll add in the secondary and tertiary shapes. That's it. The only difference here is that your lines need to be confident and flow properly. In other words, you can't draw these feathered lines as they will distract from the overall idea of smooth, flowing hair. Homework. Alright, so for your homework, I would suggest doing a few drawings around 10 to really get the concept in there. I would try for 20 actually, but let's start off with 10. So 1, start off with the 3 division method that I told you so you can understand the hair divisions and structure, then move on to actually drawing the head and hair using the steps I showcased. Start with the head, block out the hair, get some secondary forms, shade using basic light, medium, and dark values, and then detail the hair, being wary not to over detail it with textures. Just as a quick tip, when looking for images to use, try to use images where there is a clear directional light source so you can clearly see the lights, darks, and midtones. These celebrity red carpet photos, by the way, are a big no-no, and so are these fashion shots like this. The lighting drowns out most of the shadows and the forms are harder to recognize, so try to stay away from these specific shots. These ones, on the other hand, have a really good light to dark balance and really showcase the forms. Also, you can clearly see one light source. Alright, so what are you waiting for? Get out there and create some more mediocre art and try to sell it as an NFT. And if you guys are really eager for more tips and tricks, don't forget my new website and Discord channel, links down below. And yeah, that's about it. Quite a bit of information I covered, mainly 2D. Obviously, this is a 3D channel, so I will get the 3D version out later this week. But yeah, like it if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't. Let me know what you guys thought about it in the comments section, and as usual, I will see you in the next one.